The first thing I noticed was the second wine glass. It wasn't mine. I never drink red. It gives me headaches and heartburn and makes me say stupid things I regret. But there it was, still wet, on the kitchen counter, right next to the one she always uses. I didn't ask. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, staring at that glass like it was shouting at me. She must have forgotten to put it away. Or maybe she didn't care if I saw it. I don't know which is worse. The whole apartment smelled like that stupid lavender candle she only lights when someone's coming over. Not when I come home. No. When someone else is. Someone who apparently deserves ambience. I dropped my bag. Quiet. Careful. Like I didn't want to wake the lie that was sleeping in the walls. Then I opened the hallway closet. Her shoes were gone. The red heels. The ones she says are just for fun. Yeah, fun. I checked the smart lock history. It showed the front door opened at 7:03 p.m. Closed at 7:04. Never opened again. She left. Without saying a word. No text. No note. No hey heading out. Just gone. And I knew. She wasn't with friends. Not at that hour. Not in that dress. Not with that wine still swirling in the glass like it missed him. So I sat down. Didn't cry. Not yet. Just sat in that big, empty silence, listening to the hum of the fridge like it had something to confess. I pulled out my phone, opened the app, and I locked the door. Quietly. From the inside. Then I turned off the lights. And I waited. 3 hours passed. At 12:26 a.m., the handle turned. Once. Twice. A frustrated jiggle. Then silence. Then the knock. Soft at first. Then louder. Then came the voice. Curtis? Baby? Why is the door locked? I didn't answer. I just watched the camera feed on my phone. Her blurry figure in the porch light, shifting from confused to annoyed to, well, not yet scared. Not yet. Then she called. And I finally hit record. I didn't move. I didn't blink. Just stared at the glowing screen in my hand, watching her shift uncomfortably outside our front door like a kid locked out past curfew. Her voice cracked a little on the third call. Curtis, seriously? What's going on? Open the door. I could hear the faint buzz of traffic behind her. Laughter too. Male laughter. And then the unmistakable sound of her whispering something to someone else, before stepping out of view for a few seconds. When she came back into frame, her smile was gone. She wasn't used to this. Me saying nothing. Me doing something. I was always the one who forgave too fast, who excused everything, who convinced myself that silence was safer than confrontation. But not tonight. Not after that second wine glass. Not after the lies she served cold every time she walked in late and called me paranoid for noticing. She pounded on the door. Curtis. I swear, if this is some stupid joke, she didn't finish the sentence. Because I was already scrolling through the footage from earlier that evening. The door camera. She had left at 7:03 p.m. like I thought. But she wasn't alone. There, right behind her, wearing a leather jacket and that smug, too good for this town grin, was him. The same guy from the gallery show 3 weeks ago. The same one she said was a married client. I remember because she rolled her eyes when I asked who he was and said, "Don't be weird." Yeah, weird of me to wonder why a client was touching her lower back while she laughed like a teenager in a rom-com. The timestamp showed them leaving together. She let him into our home first. That explained the second glass. The scent of cologne in the hallway. The towels bunched up in the bathroom like they'd rushed out. That explained too much. At 12:43 a.m., she called again. I finally picked up. Curtis, she said, and now her voice was trying to be soft. Like she'd just remembered I had feelings. Babe, I know how this looks, okay? But can you just open the door so we can talk? Talk. Like we were equals in this? I almost laughed. Instead, I said nothing. Just let her sit in that silence she left me in for months. Then I pressed the speaker button, leaned back, and whispered, "Did he enjoy the wine?" She didn't respond right away. I could hear her breathing. Panicked. Caught. Curtis, it's not what you think. But it was exactly what I thought. And worse. Because that night didn't end with her walking away from the door. It ended with him coming back to pick her up, and me catching every second on video. And what happened the next morning? That's when everything turned. I barely slept. The footage kept playing on a loop in my head, each frame more painful than the last. Him following her down our front steps. Her brushing her hair back like she always did when she wanted to impress someone. The way she lingered before getting into his car, like she wasn't sure if she'd even bother coming back. And the kicker? She didn't even knock again. No final plea. Just climbed into that sleek black Audi like our life didn't matter anymore. Like I'd been demoted to a temporary inconvenience. By the time the sun came up, I wasn't even angry. I felt empty, hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left me walking around in a Curtis-shaped shell. But I knew I had to keep going. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to scream. I just wanted truth. Cold, clean, undeniable truth. And if she wasn't going to give it to me, then I was going to dig it up myself. I started with her laptop. Normally off limits. She was obsessive about privacy, even kept it password protected with a fingerprint lock. But I'd seen her unlock it a dozen times, and last month, when she was sick, she had me open it for her to order soup. Turns out, her backup password was our cat's name and her high school jersey number. So predictable it hurt. What I found wasn't a full-blown smoking gun, it was worse. It was subtle. Hidden folders with boring names like tax docs and project files. But inside were screenshots, messages, photo sheets saved. Not just of him, but of her with him. Different cities, different outfits. A weekend trip she claimed was for a marketing retreat was actually 2 nights in Asheville at a boutique hotel with champagne and a private balcony. There were texts too, lines that made my stomach twist. Things like, I wish I'd met you first, and he's too safe. Too small. That one stayed with me. Too small. Like I was a placeholder. A mistake. But here's the thing she didn't know. I didn't just have the house under smart surveillance. I had the car too. Yeah. She hated driving, so we always used mine. And last winter, after someone sideswiped us, I installed a discreet dash cam, one with audio. I checked the memory card, skipped through a dozen silent commutes. And then I hit jackpot. Friday, 2 days ago, the last time she worked late. He was in the passenger seat. I heard his voice before I even saw him. Does he suspect anything? She laughed. That high, careless laugh she used to save for me. He still thinks I'm the same girl who cried when we adopted a stray cat. He doesn't see anything. And then she added, it's almost sad. Almost sad. I don't remember sitting down, but I must have, because I woke up an hour later on the floor with my phone in my hand and the video still playing. That's when I made a decision. Not revenge. Not violence. Just exposure. She wanted a life without consequences? Fine. But I was done covering for her. And the first person I called was someone she'd never expect. She had no idea I even had her mother's number saved. That was the first call I made. Not to shame her. Not yet. I just needed to hear someone else say I wasn't crazy. Needed someone who'd known her longer than I had. Someone who might confirm that this woman, the one who used to fall asleep holding my hand, really was capable of this level of cruelty. Her mom, Valerie, answered after 3 rings. Still groggy. I could hear birds chirping in the background, like the universe had no idea how shattered my world was. I kept my voice even. Calm. Too calm, maybe. Hi, Valerie. It's Curtis. Sorry to bother you early. I need to ask you something. She was quiet for a beat, then said, is everything all right with Marley? And right there, the way she asked, like she already knew something wasn't. Like maybe this wasn't the first time Marley had burned down a relationship behind a smile. That gave me the nerve to say what I'd been holding back. I think she's cheating on me, I said. No, I know she is. I expected her to deny it, to defend her daughter. But instead, she sighed. Long, slow, like someone who'd been waiting for this call for years. She always runs when it gets too real, she said. She did it to Jordan before you, to Eric before him. She doesn't know how to sit still in love. That hit me harder than any proof I'd found. I wasn't special. I wasn't even different. I was just the next safe guy she picked to lean on until the chaos inside her got bored. Valerie apologized. Genuinely. But it didn't fix anything. Not really. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time staring at my wedding photo on the bookshelf. I looked so stupid in it, grinning like I'd won the lottery. And she looked like she was already halfway gone. Around noon, I got a text from Marley. Short. Cold. No emotion. I need to come home to get some stuff. No apology. No explanation. Just stuff. I didn't answer. I didn't unlock the door either. Instead, I left the house. I needed to clear my head, get away from the walls that still smelled like her perfume. I took a drive out to the lake, the one we used to visit before everything got complicated. I sat on a bench, alone, just listening to the water and trying to convince myself that I wasn't the one who ruined this. But while I was gone, She came anyway. And she didn't come alone. My neighbor texted me a photo. Marley, standing outside our front door, trying to break in with him beside her. That was the final nail. Because if she could bring him to our home, to the place where we built our life, even just to get her stuff, then I knew she didn't see this place as sacred anymore. Or me. She saw it as disposable. But the one thing she didn't know was that I had already changed everything. And the next time she tried to cross that line, she'd find out what else I locked her out of. When I got home, they were gone, but I could still see the footprints on the front porch. Hers, smaller and frantic. His, spaced apart, like he never had a reason to rush. I watched the camera footage. I don't know why I put myself through that. Some part of me still hoping maybe she'd hesitate. Maybe she'd turn to him and say, "What am I doing?" But no. She knocked like it was her right, like I was just being petty for locking her out. He stood behind her the whole time, hands in his pockets, sunglasses on like he was watching a dog bark from the wrong side of a fence. I'd set up an auto response on the doorbell speaker before I left. So when she rang it, she heard my voice, pre-recorded, "Hello. Marley, you're not welcome here anymore. Please leave the property." I expected her to yell, cry, something. But she just rolled her eyes and turned back to him. He smirked, like it was all a game, like I was some punchline in their little story. But the part that gutted me? She laughed too. Just once. A tiny, breathy laugh. But it was enough. That's when I realized she was never going to feel bad. Not really. She didn't think she'd done anything wrong. To her, I was just collateral damage. A phase. A footnote. She didn't care about the house, the memories, the broken promises, just her convenience. And now that I had the nerve to lock a door she thought she'd always have a key to, suddenly, I was the villain in her story. But I wasn't going to let her rewrite it. So I called the bank. Then I called the landlord. Because, yeah, joke's on me, I didn't even own the house. We'd been renting for years, and the lease was under my name. Marley always said she didn't want the paperwork stress. Now it was working in my favor. I told the landlord everything. He was sympathetic. Said he'd seen things like this before. Offered to change the codes to the garage too. I said yes. Next, I called our phone carrier. Got her number disconnected from the account. Switched all bills to solo status. She wouldn't even be able to check her voicemail by morning. I know it sounds petty, but it wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming something. My space. My peace. My name. She had taken every ounce of emotional air out of my lungs for months, maybe years. This wasn't an explosion. It was the slow collapse of a man who finally realized no one was coming to save him but himself. That night, she tried to call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. She texted, "You're being insane." I replied with one line. So were the vows. And then I blocked the number. But I knew she wouldn't give up that easily. And I was right. Because the next morning, she showed up again. Only this time, she wasn't crying. She brought a lawyer. I should have known she wouldn't come alone again. I should have known Marley only plays defense when she's losing control. The next morning, I was brushing my teeth when I saw the black sedan pull up out front. It was too nice for a rideshare. Polished, dark-tinted windows, license plate from the next county over. I peeked through the blinds and there she was. Same red coat she wore the night she swore she was just meeting Kara. And beside her, stepping out of the car like he was about to pitch a product, was a lawyer. I knew it instantly. The stiff walk. The tablet tucked under his arm. That phony calm they always were like armor. They didn't knock this time. She just stared straight into the camera, then took out her phone. I could hear the voicemail come in while I was still watching her stand there. "Curtis, you've taken this too far. This is harassment now. If you don't let me inside, we'll escalate it legally." I don't know why, but my hands were shaking. Maybe it was adrenaline. Maybe it was rage. But more than anything, it was disbelief. She was standing on my porch after she lied. She cheated. She laughed in my face. And now I was the one in trouble? She wasn't ashamed. She was doubling down. She wasn't just rewriting the story. She brought someone to make sure her version sounded official. And that's when I remembered something. A folder I'd almost forgotten about. I'd saved every text, every email, even the receipts from those weekends she claimed were for work, because I'd paid for one of them myself, thinking I was helping her career. Inside my email was a paper trail miles long, photos from the dash cam, the security timestamps, her messages joking about how easy it was to keep secrets. So I walked out the back door, got in my car, and drove away without a word. Let them stand there. Let them wait. I wasn't about to have some sidewalk ambush drama for my neighbors to gossip over. I had a different plan now. I drove straight to my friend Lydia's place. She's not a lawyer, but she works in a family law office. The one Marley never paid attention to because she assumed Lydia was too boring to matter. I showed her everything. She didn't even blink. She's trying to flip the narrative before you do, Lydia said, scrolling through the photos on my phone. You've got more than enough to shut this down before it starts. We spent the whole day organizing it. Documents, recordings, timeline. Every piece of the truth, neatly laid out in chronological order. Not to humiliate her, but to protect myself. Because I finally realized, Marley wasn't just selfish. She was dangerous. She wasn't trying to win back anything. She was trying to erase me cleanly, like I was a glitch in her otherwise perfect little new life. By the time I got home that evening, the porch was empty again. No red coat. No lawyer. Just silence. Then I opened my inbox. There it was. An email from her new representation. It started with, "My client is requesting access to retrieve personal belongings and secure items of sentimental value." But it ended with the line that told me everything I needed to know, and reserves the right to pursue legal action for emotional distress if denied fair access. She wasn't just trying to move on. She was threatening me, and I wasn't going to play her game anymore. Because the next time she came near this house, I wouldn't be the only one watching. The thing no one warns you about betrayal is how paranoid it makes you. Not just about people, but about reality itself. You start second-guessing your own memory, your judgment, even the floor under your feet. I sat on my couch for hours that night, staring at the legal email, trying to figure out how it had come to this. How the woman I used to leave notes for on the bathroom mirror was now threatening to sue me for emotional distress. Ironic, considering she was the one who'd been running around behind my back with a man whose cologne still haunted our sheets. But that night, I wasn't alone. Because what Marley couldn't know, was that after her last visit, I didn't just install extra cameras. I hired someone. His name was Jared. He worked private security for a retail chain I did some tech work for last year. We'd stayed in touch. I didn't need a bodyguard. I needed a witness. Someone neutral. Someone who could document anything she did next. And Jared? He was calm, sharp, and completely unimpressed by theatrics. He agreed to park down the street and watch the house for a few days. Not for her safety. For mine. And good thing I did. Because the next day, just after noon, Marley came back, without warning. No lawyer this time. No text. She came alone. But not empty-handed. She had a key. An old one. From before I changed the locks. She must have found it in a drawer, or maybe she had it all along, waiting for the right moment. I was at Lydia's office again when Jared called me. His voice was steady, but serious. "She's trying to get in," he said. "Do you want me to intervene?" I told him yes. He turned on his dash cam and approached her. Calm. Respectful. Just like we agreed. He explained that she was trespassing, that the lease didn't have her name on it, and that her presence was being documented for legal purposes. She laughed in his face. Said he was bluffing. Said Curtis wouldn't dare. But I did. I dared a lot, actually. Because while she was standing on my porch, trying to bulldoze her way back into the life she torched, I was sitting across from a paralegal filing a restraining order application. Lydia had walked me through every step. All the text threats, the false accusations, the footage of her trying to break in with another man. It all added up. Not to some dramatic courtroom battle, but to evidence. Quiet, undeniable evidence. And for once, the story wasn't being told by her tears or his smirk. It was being told by timestamps, screenshots, and the quiet truth of someone who finally refused to be stepped on. When Jared told her she needed to leave, she went quiet, just stared past him at the front door. Then, without another word, she walked back to her car, slammed the door harder than necessary, and peeled off like a teenager denied her phone. She didn't know yet that she'd just made my case stronger. That every desperate knock, every smug visit, every attempt to twist this into my failure, it was now documented. Legally. Permanently. But what truly floored me was what happened a few hours later. I was home again, sitting in the living room, when I got an alert. Not from the cameras. From my old email, the one I barely used anymore. It was a message. From his wife. The man Marley cheated on me with. Subject line. I think we both need to talk. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Or maybe spam. Why would his wife email me? Why would she even know my name? But when I opened the message, it was short, direct, and ice-cold in the way only someone who's been betrayed can write. My name is Tara. I believe my husband and your wife have been involved for at least 6 months. I found pictures. If you're open to a conversation, I think we can help each other. I stared at the screen for a long time. My heart was pounding, not from rage, but from this strange, shared ache. A woman I'd never met had somehow been living a parallel heartbreak, and neither of us had known it. It wasn't just my world that had been quietly falling apart. She had been fighting her own version of the same ghost. We met at a small coffee shop 2 towns over. Neutral ground. She was exactly what I didn't expect. Calm, composed, not looking for drama. Just answers. Just truth. She handed me a manila envelope filled with photos, screenshots, dates. It confirmed everything I'd already suspected and more. There were text messages from Marley to her husband bragging about how safe I was and how she couldn't leave me yet because I still paid for everything. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because at that point, all I could do was exhale the last bit of heartbreak out of my chest. It was done. There was nothing left to uncover. No more shadows. Just light. Tara and I talked for hours. Not about them, not really. About us. About how it feels to realize you were never really seen by the person you gave everything to. About the quiet panic of pretending your life is fine when you know, deep down, it's already over. She told me she'd filed for divorce. Calmly. No theatrics. Just closure. And hearing that, her peace, her steadiness, gave me something I hadn't felt in months. Permission. To let go. I didn't need to win. I didn't need to destroy Marley. She was already doing that all on her own. Every lie, every smug little trick she played had finally caught up to her, not with fire and chaos, but with silence, with locked doors, with no one left who believed her. 3 weeks later, the restraining order was approved. Her lawyer backed off the threats. She came one last time, with a moving company and a friend, not him, to pick up the rest of her things. I wasn't home. I didn't need to be. I left her a box with her keys, her old journals, and a note that simply said, "Thank you for finally leaving the door." And then, just like that, it was quiet again. But this time, not empty. I started sleeping again. I stopped flinching when the phone buzzed. I started saying yes to things I used to avoid, dinners with friends, walks alone, even those weird, overpriced candles that smell like mountain air. I started living like the walls around me were mine again. And Tara? We still talk. Not in any forced, romantic way, but in that rare, slow way people do when they've both walked through fire and made it out. Maybe it turns into something. Maybe it doesn't. But what matters is that now, every step I take feels like it belongs to me. No more pretending. No more guessing. Just peace. And finally, freedom.